The DC to corporate media pipeline continues, this time with an operative within the Biden administration making her way to MSNBC. And who is this person? Well, Simone Sanders, who honestly, it shocks me that she used to work on Bernie Sanders's 2016 presidential campaign, but she later ended up working on behalf of the Biden campaign and then served as an official for Vice President Kamala Harris. Well, she stepped down from that role and made her way to MSNBC because MSNBC can't be bothered to hire actual journalists. They're far more interested in hiring people who have had various posts as either politicians or political operatives, and that comes with a bias. So what did Simone Sanders make her debut about? She decided to specifically talk about how various voting rights activists boycotted President Joe Biden's speech on that very issue. And the reason why they did it is because they're sick of the photo ops. They want to see action behind Biden's words, something that they have not seen. So they decided to boycott the speech, and Simone Sanders, well, she has some thoughts about them. Let's watch.
Much has been made about the activists and organizations who are skipping out on the president and vice president's remarks. And I would note that Sherrilyn Ifill, president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, has a really interesting Twitter thread folks should look at. And this speech, as you noted, this day isn't really about the activists who have decided not to attend for various reasons. This is more so a culmination, if you will, of the legacy of the president and vice president. As a senator, President Biden presided over the longest extension of the voting rights reauthorization that was, again, interrupted by Shelby v. Holder. As a attorney general, then Attorney General Harris filed amicus briefs with Shelby v. Holder. So there's a lot of history here. And I think this moment, history is unbroken continuity, as a mentor once told me. And that is what this moment is.
No, that's not what this moment is. This moment is about the fact that Democrats under the leadership of the Biden administration have absolutely failed in doing a goddamn thing when it comes to voting rights. To say that this is about the continuation of the legacy for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is, first of all, laughable, right? I mean, and doesn't really come across well, or at least not as well as she thinks it does. You have various organizers who put in the work in states like Georgia to get Joe Biden elected, okay? We're not talking about people who simply showed up to vote for them. We're talking about people who got out there, who organized, who put, unlike Biden, words of actions behind their words. And now they find themselves completely abandoned on the issue that matters the most, not just for them, but for our democratic process. We're talking about gerrymandering that is essentially giving the Republican Party the upper hand in these elections, to the point where Democrats don't need to win simple majorities to win various districts. They have to go above and beyond in order to win as a result of gerrymandered districts. We're talking about various voter suppression laws that have passed in states like Florida and Georgia. And for her to say, no, this is actually really about the continuation of the Biden and Harris legacy. Oh, well, their legacy ain't looking so good, to be honest. And I just want to remind you all of the various voting rights activists and organizers who Simone Sanders is currently minimizing right now in an effort to do positive PR spin for the Biden administration and its failures. I want to remind you of Cliff Albright, who gave a fantastic interview on CNN recently. Here's what he had to say about the Biden speech that he boycotted just yesterday.
We don't need another speech from the president. He gave a very passionate speech, not only the one that he gave for the commemoration last week of January 6th, but remember, he gave a very passionate speech back in Philadelphia, back in July. But then literally for 7 months, we heard nothing else about voting rights from him. And so now is not the time for another speech. And to be clear, we believe in using the presidency as a bully pulpit. We would have loved that the president used the presidency as a bully pulpit for the past 7, 8 months while we've been fighting for voting rights, even getting arrested outside of the White House, begging him to do so. But at this point, we don't need another speech. We don't need him to come to Georgia and use us as a prop. What we need is work. And we're out working too, because there are attacks going on against Georgia voters and Georgia organization happening right now.
I love to hear it. We don't need to be used as props. That was strong language, but I don't think that was an exaggeration. I don't think that was unfair to the Biden administration. That was accurate. And to be quite honest with you all, it's so cathartic to hear individuals who, really demanded that we get Trump out of office and elect, Joe Biden in his place, actually speaking truth. Because far too long, we've dealt with mainstream Democratic voters who will come after you if you're ever critical of the Democratic Party. No, but they deserve it. You obviously have to provide evidence for your argument. And in this case, the facts speak for themselves. What has the Biden administration done to advance voting rights legislation? What has the Biden administration done to essentially use sticks, to use maybe some more hardline tactics against the corporate Democrats in the Senate who refuse to reform or create a carve out in the legislative filibuster in the Senate to ensure that there is a pathway for the passage of a voting rights bill? I love that interview with Cliff Albright. I thought it was such a fantastic interview. In fact, I'm gonna show you one more clip. Yes, we've shown you these clips before, but how could we not show you again? Let's watch.
Let me just read once again what he is going to say today. The next few days, when these bills come to a vote, will mark a turning point in this nation. Will we choose democracy over autocracy, light over shadow, justice over injustice? I know where I stand. I will not yield. I will not flinch. I will defend your right to vote in our democracy against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So the question is, where will the institution of the United States Senate stand? What more could he do?
Well, a couple of things he could do. One is that we need him not only to give that speech and to talk about the filibuster and to give a clear plan. It's one thing for you to say, I'm open to filibuster changes, right? That's what he said up until now. He has not given a full-throated call for them to modify the filibuster. He's not yet done what he did for infrastructure. When he went to Congress and met with the members of the House, he didn't go to those members and say, you know what, I'm open to infrastructure. If infrastructure is necessary, I can go along with that. What he said was pass this bill and pass it now. He's not done that in regards to voting rights.
I love it. What is your plan, Joe Biden? And of course, during his speech, he said that he's in favor of reforming the filibuster. So there could be a pathway for the passage of a voting rights bill. I mean, you could say whatever you want. Anyone can say whatever they want. What are you gonna do about it? I'm gonna be a best-selling New York Times author. I could say anything, but where am I putting in the work to make it an actual possibility? And what we're seeing with the Biden administration is virtually no work. We do see some reaction after there's backlash to their incompetence, for instance. I mean, they can laugh at the notion of providing free COVID tests, for instance. And then when there's backlash to that, they're like fumbling and stumbling, like, oh, I don't know, maybe we're gonna provide 500,000 free COVID tests at some point. I don't think that's even happened yet. This is not, is this the continuation of the Biden-Harris legacy? I mean, it would have been nice if Nicole Wallace had Cliff Albright on that panel. In fact, why don't we take a quick look at that panel? Let's look at that panel. We got a little screenshot of that very panel where Simone Sanders spoke. And I just wanna give you guys a brief resume for not all, but most of the people on that screen. Nicole Wallace, the host, is a former White House communications director under the George Bush administration. Then you have Michael Steele, okay? He was the head of the Republican National Committee during the Obama administration. And then you've got failed Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill of Missouri. And then of course, you know who Simone Sanders is because we've been talking about her. I don't know who the other dude is on the top over there with the guitar behind him. I don't watch MSNBC. I come across these clips and they're infuriating and I share my perspective on them. But this is not let's just be clear, that what you saw there is not journalism. A bunch of political hacks, political operatives, former failed political politicians. No, that's not journalism. There isn't even any balance on that panel. If you want to hear or understand the perspective of the various activists who put in work to get this administration elected in the first place, have them on. Not interested in hearing from the Kamala Harris spin doctor, not interested in that. Definitely interested in hearing from people who are on the ground doing the work, who actually want to improve the country. So major props to Cliff Albright and all of the activists out there who are holding the Biden administration's feet to the fire. I love to see it. And I will always cover stories like that because they deserve all the credit in the world.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.